But the bottom line is, I don't want to make people's lives better by giving them somebody else's money. I want to give them the opportunity to go out and earn the money and provide for themselves and their families.
That's Rick Santorum's tongue-tied moment on New Year's Day. Back with me now. Man who has some strong views on politics, Phil Donahue. What do you make of the Rick Santorum surge?
One of many. He's, I saw him commenting on the Straits of Hormuz. He's got both guns out. He's already angry. You can see it. They better not block around. And you can hear the drums in the background. And the heartbeat accelerates. He wants to go after Iran. I mean, how many wars do you want to have in your lifetime? How many bombs are you going to drop? I just think it looks like we've become a warrior nation. We bombed Grenada. We are dropping bombs on crowded cities at night where old people and children are sleeping. And we're watching it on CNN. And the only voice that's spoken up at all in this campaign about this is Ron Paul. Why are we so interventionist, he wants to know? What are we doing with all these wars? How are we safer? These are very common sense observations, and no other candidate can possibly speak those words. It would be, they believe, politically fatal. Now think about that. You can't use an anti-war platform to get elected. So maybe that explains why it's so easy for us to go to war. Norman Solomon has written a book which is War Made Easy. And essentially he says, if a president of the United States wants a war, he can have one. And I believe that totally.
The British Defence Secretary says disruption by Iran to the flow of oil through the Strait of Hormuz would threaten the global economy, and vows that Britain will play its part in maintaining security in the Gulf.
Difficult times.
Any attempt by Iran to close the Strait of Hormuz would be illegal and would not succeed, British Defence Secretary Philip Hammond said on Thursday, adding that British naval forces would continue to play a part in maintaining security in the Gulf. Hammond gave a speech to U.S. think tank the Atlantic Council during a visit to Washington.
Disruption to the flow of oil through the Straits of Hormuz would threaten regional and global economic growth. Any attempt by Iran to close the straits would be illegal and would be unsuccessful.
Hammond says Britain's Royal Navy would continue to play a substantial role as part of the combined maritime forces, a U.S.-led Bahrain-based force drawn from 25 nations, whose missions include counter-piracy, counter-terrorism, and security in the Gulf.
The pressure is clearly mounting. The sanctions announcements have clearly rattled Tehran.
During a news conference in Tehran with visiting Turkish delegation, Iran's foreign minister says the Islamic Republic can weather the storm of the most recent international sanctions. Here's more.
Iran and Turkey sought on Thursday to ease tensions over a NATO missile shield and the Arab uprisings. On a state visit to Tehran, Turkish Foreign Minister Ahmet Davutoglu assured his counterpart Ali Akbar Saleh that Ankara would never allow an attack on Iran from its territory. Davutoglu's two-day trip to Iran came after a year in which Turkey and Iran fell out over the NATO missile system. Concerned that the NATO system could neutralize Iran's own defenses in the event of an attack by Israel, some Iranian politicians even suggested bombing the installations, such as a NATO missile early warning system set up on Turkish soil. Saleh reassured Davutoglu in December that such a course of action was not Iranian government policy. Davutoglu says the NATO's defensive shield missile system was in fact purely defensive, and that the purpose of the system was not to attack any of Turkey's neighbors.
This effort reflects the guidance that I personally gave throughout this process. Yes, the tide of war is receding, but the question that this strategy answers is what kind of military will we need long after the wars of the last decade are over? And today, we're fortunate to be moving forward from a position of strength. As I made clear in Australia, we will be strengthening our presence in the Asia-Pacific, and budget reductions will not come at the expense of that critical region. We're going to continue investing in our critical partnerships and alliances, including NATO, which has demonstrated time and again, most recently in Libya, that it's a force multiplier. We will stay vigilant, especially in the Middle East. As we look beyond the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan and the end of long-term nation building with large military footprints, we'll be able to ensure our security with smaller conventional ground forces. We'll continue to get rid of outdated Cold War era systems so that we can invest in the capabilities that we need for the future, including intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, counterterrorism, countering weapons of mass destruction, and the ability to operate in environments where adversaries try to deny us access. So yes, our military will be leaner, but the world must know the United States is going to maintain our military superiority with armed forces that are agile, flexible, and ready for the full range of contingencies and threats.
Hello everyone. Today is Friday, January 6, 2012, and I'm Darko. My website is ggnonline.com. That's ggnonline.com. Also on YouTube, it's ddarko2012. That's my channel. If you would like to check it out, you can subscribe. Okay, I'm just going to go as fast as I can through this video and just give my quick comments on a couple things that he said.
Yes, the tide of war is receding, but the question that this strategy answers is what kind of military will we need long after the wars of the last decade are over?
So right there, when he's talking about the wars of the past being over, he's talking about us versus them, big nations versus nations, like we've always known it, and going to the global army, the global police force, the global army of the world, basically policing any dissenters of this global government.
Over. And today, we're fortunate to be moving forward from a position of strength. As I made clear in Australia, we will be strengthening our presence in the Asia-Pacific.
I.e. the last time him and Hillary Clinton went out there and basically threatened China to get out of the South China Sea. Actually said, end quote, "We're here to stay."
Critical region. We're going to continue investing in our critical partnerships and alliances, including NATO, which has demonstrated time and again, most recently in Libya, that it's a force multiplier.
So the United States taxpayers, as their economy and the people are basically, the middle class is being crushed by the help of this man and the banks that he represents and the ones that put him in office. What's going to happen? Well, we're still going to support the global army, i.e. NATO, to conduct regime changes, and the false force multiplier that he's talking about is actually getting oil, whereas the profits revenue were going to the people of Libya and social programs, and now they're going to go in straight to the pockets of these big companies.
We will stay vigilant, especially in the Middle East.
In other words, the global intelligence agencies will stage a false flag attack in the Middle East.
As we look beyond the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan and the end of long-term nation building with large military footprints,
i.e. the invasion of a sovereign nation, the raping, pillaging of the resources, and the killing of their women and children, i.e. civilians.
we'll be able to ensure our security with smaller conventional ground forces.
In other words, they'll be able to protect the resources that were stolen after invading a sovereign country with smaller forces, i.e. Navy SEALs, MI6, Special Forces, and other types of mercenary groups, instead of the traditional big military.
We'll continue to get rid of outdated Cold War era systems so that we can invest in the capabilities that we need for the future, including intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, counterterrorism, countering weapons of mass destruction, and the ability to operate in environments where adversaries try to deny us access.
So the Soviet-era weapons are the nuclear weapons. He's talking about weapons beyond nuclear, and yet we're focused on Iran. Intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance. Well, I think that pretty much is self-explanatory. Basically what he's saying is it's to monitor every possible terrorist, i.e. any person who is a dissenter of this global government. The last part is very interesting. He said operate in areas where the enemy does not allow us access. Guys, this is the false flag. This is the space weapons. This is the asteroids. This is what von Braun was supposedly talking about. This is where the false flag comes in. And they say we need to build up our space weapons to defend ourselves against space threats. This is what he's talking about. This is spooky. Okay, moving on. Iran plans more war games in Strait as sanctions bite. Second war games in a month. And Japan is now hinting at ignoring U.S. oil ban on Iran. So far, South Korea and China have dismissed those sanctions as well. Next up, we have the economy of Iran. And their top four exporters partners are what? China, Japan, South Korea, and India. So they're not going to need a bigger army per se because they're going to use other countries like South Korea, and they're going to use financial warfare and weather warfare. The recent bombings in Iraq have been all throughout the news. U.S. revenge on Iraqis. Tehran's interim Friday prayers leader said after being forced into a shameful retreat, the U.S. resorted to bombings to take revenge on the Iraq nation and government. He emphasized that the Shia, Sunni, Kurd, and Arabs all wanted the U.S. troops out of Iraq. Says here, U.S. brands al-Qaida, Kurdish Battalions, terrorists. They operate along the Iran-Iraqi border. And an American columnist says the U.S.-led invasion of Afghanistan under the pretext of the so-called War on Terror was intended to pave the ground for the occupation of Iraq in 2003, which of course was on the premise of, Saddam being responsible for 9/11, then him having weapons of mass destructions, and then him having links to al-Qaida, all of which were not true. But it doesn't really matter, and that's when Obama said, weapons of mass destruction. Well, you don't even really have to have weapons of mass destruction. You don't even have to really be a terrorist that actually does anything. You just have to be deemed that by them. And you don't have to worry about a standing army anymore. You just have to worry about drone bombings in your backyard. I'll keep saying this over and over again until I'm dead, because that's where it's going if you can't see it by now. And also, it's going towards machines and not so much humans, because humans, they tend to come back and they realize they were used as cannon fodder. And they start to protest, and that's just a big sticky problem for them. So they need robots and machines to do their dirty work. U.S. and Kingdom of Saudi Arabia behind sectarian unrest in Iraq. So as things escalate in Pakistan, they're going to keep NATO convoys ban going on their little trucks. Pakistanis demand a decentralization of power. It's a big deal. People from the underdeveloped regions of Pakistan took to the streets to press their demand to decentralize federal power structure by creating new provinces. And then look at this. The senior Taliban commander killed in airstrike after being shot by Apache helicopter. So we're supposed to be friends with the Taliban. Now they're opening a base in Qatar, I believe. And someone said in the comment board, did this person actually shoot back whoever they killed? And of course, most of the comments are, well done, lads, and good. I hope they get more of them too. Well done, lads. And the point I want to make is I was surprised that the Taliban would, just give up whatever. But this makes sense. Pakistan Taliban commanders in turf war between the two most powerful Pakistani Taliban leaders, militant sources have said. So just like in Somalia, where Germany and Britain could never conquer the Somalian people, what did they do? To divide them up in half. So that's what they're doing to the Taliban. They're dividing them up, and it says here that the Pakistan Taliban could hinder the Afghan Taliban and al-Qaeda struggle in Afghanistan against the United States. Now, I've mentioned the Taliban before about Russia, so I understand. I'm not condoning terrorism or anything like that. But I think it's worth taking notice, because it was kind of weird how they just all of a sudden, we're going to be in Afghanistan till 2014 and Iraq till 2016 and Pakistan now. And now all of a sudden they're just pulling out. And you saw in that one video the defense secretary in Britain talking about having, basically using Bahrain as a base to launch these mercenaries from. And then, of course, you have China now working with Pakistan. So now Pakistan is now more allies with China than the United States. So everything's changing. And I'll cover China in the next video. The U.S. turns to drones to counter China. A recent offer by the Seychelles, sorry if I pronounce that wrong, to refuel and replenish Chinese naval ships on anti-piracy patrols. We keep seeing anti-piracy in the Northwest Indian Ocean was seen as the latest sign of China's expanding naval power. Please join me in the second part. This is GGN, and I'm Darko. Thank you.